Today I'm talking to Rudolf Seiters about trust in politics. He worked extremely closely with the late former Chancellor Helmut Kohl. Mr. Seiters, welcome to the DW interview.
Thanks.
Good to have you with us. My name is Thomas Spahn. Mr. Seiters, when Communist East Germany collapsed, the wall fell and German reunification was being forged, you were head of the Chancellor's office and one of Helmut Kohl's closest confidants. Did his death mark the passing of your former boss or of a friend?
One should be a bit cautious about using the term friend, especially when the other person was such a remarkable figure in world history. But I was certainly a confidant of Helmut Kohl, and we understood each other almost instinctively.
You stayed in touch even after his retirement from politics.
I kept in touch with him after he withdrew from politics. I also visited him last year, and during those difficult months I spoke to his wife on the phone and heard from her how he was doing and so on.
So your friendship endured until the end of his life. That isn't something many can say, as we will come to later. But first, let us talk about the dramatic days of unification after the Berlin Wall fell. You were with him almost day and night then. How close was your working relationship?
Well, Helmut Kohl knew me from my many years of work in the parliamentary party. I was head of the parliamentary group, and like Wolfgang Schäuble before me, we knew every facet of the group's work, about the links to our coalition partners, and about the guidelines we had to follow when making decisions. We also saw potential threats and had to make sure that any legislation was passed without major complications. So we already had been in close contact for years.
That often went well into the night, I believe. So much was changing so rapidly then and required a constant response. Did you overnight sometimes in the Chancellery?
Well, days like that used to start at 7 a.m. The Chancellor was always at his desk by 7:30.
If he hadn't already called you at 6 o'clock.
If he hadn't already phoned before. And they finished if the Chancellor had no evening appointments in his bungalow. From my point of view, these were very, very important hours, because after the hustle and bustle of the day, we could sometimes discuss basic issues in peace and quiet. So we, the members of Helmut Kohl's staff, got to know his thoughts, his goals and what he wanted, and we could talk about them. So yes, especially in the days when we were concerned with getting the refugees out of the German embassies in Prague, Warsaw and Budapest, in other words, getting clearance for them to leave for West Germany, we did spend some nights there.
Helmut Kohl loved personal, direct connections, and he loved the telephone. He also called you when he offered you the job at the Chancellery. How did that work? What happened?
It was all quite normal. Juliana Weber put him through and he asked me what I was doing. I told him I was mowing the lawn. That's a worthwhile activity, he replied, but there are also worthwhile activities in Bonn. Then he asked if I had a black suit. It was pretty relaxed, and yes, I knew what it was about.
So all you needed at first for the job was a black suit. But Mr. Seiters, such phone calls, this kind of direct communication, were also characteristic of his way of working. That's how he governed, isn't it?
Well, many people talk about the Kohl system, some of them disparagingly. I've never said anything derogatory about it. It was simply a system he himself described. He surrounded himself, in his closest circle of advisors, with confidants, with people who were loyal to him, who he could discuss anything with, without it becoming public knowledge. That's how he gained access to expert information over and above what the ministries had given him in writing. And when he needed to find out more, he reached for the phone. He had people he could ask everywhere.
Did loyalty mean no dissent was tolerated?
On the contrary. Some people think that Helmut Kohl was like that and wouldn't brook any contradiction. No. We did have some intense discussions. I also remember some controversial discussions, such as with Horst Teltschik, the foreign policy advisor, who was one of Helmut Kohl's most important people, or the economic policy advisor, Ludwig. There was dissent from me, from Schäuble. We all did it in our own ways. But he insisted any dissent must be justified. If someone turned up and talked about something superficially, then he could react quite sharply and harshly.
Then history rolled towards you and swept you up. You were one of the very few, in addition to the then US President Bush Sr., to be told in advance about Helmut Kohl's 10-point plan for unification. The world was taken by surprise, including Foreign Minister Genscher. Did you have any misgivings about that?
I think Helmut Kohl feared his idea and his 10-point plan could be talked to death or meet opposition before it ever got off the ground. That would have been very unpleasant, because we wanted to send out a signal. The Chancellor wanted to send out this signal. And as far as the Free Democrats were concerned, we were convinced that it would be leaked straight away and then it wouldn't be a surprise the next morning.
Let's stay with your own opinion, also your differences with Helmut Kohl. You later became Germany's interior minister and resigned after a Red Army faction terrorist was killed in a police operation under what were at the time unexplained circumstances. Kohl was totally against you resigning, but you decided to go against him. How hard was that? Maybe it was a bit disloyal to do something the Chancellor actually didn't want.
The decisive point why I resigned, in a sentence, was that I no longer had the reins in my hand. But a minister doesn't resign until he has told the head of government. So I was glad when I finally reached him after 2.5 hours. He was totally opposed. We talked 3 times on the phone. He'd probably also conferred with other people. But I told him, Herr Chancellor, I've never asked you for anything, but now I ask you to respect my decision. That's when he gave in, but on the condition that I would say he had not wanted me to take this step.
This monument, Helmut Kohl, later got a few cracks after he, as head of the CDU, concealed 2 million Deutschmarks in illegal donations in secret accounts. Did your picture of Helmut Kohl also develop cracks?
I suffered particularly from the fact that the relationship between Helmut Kohl and Wolfgang Schäuble was shattered, or at least split apart. And of course the debates in the party at that time also showed how shaken up it was by all this, as was the public. But the bottom line, even subsequently I have to say, Helmut Schmidt said, in my mind quite rightly, everything we discuss, we should also discuss critically. But as far as the illegal donations affair is concerned, it won't tarnish or eclipse Helmut Kohl's historic performance as a German and a European. And I share that opinion.
You mentioned that some of Helmut Kohl's friendships were shattered back then, and he also quarreled with his sons. Could one therefore say he isolated himself at the end?
As far as his family situation is concerned, I cannot assess the relationships in any detail. Anything I say now would be speculation, so let's leave it at that.
So you remain loyal to your friend, Helmut Kohl. At the moment, we get the impression that Europe, the united Europe he stood for, is dissolving. Was Helmut Kohl the last European?
No, I think that it's also Chancellor Merkel's goal to strengthen Europe and act in solidarity in internal affairs. But unfortunately, the times have changed. Today, we look at Moscow and at Washington, and we can also see a lot of national egotism in Europe.
Washington. Und wir sehen auch viele nationale.
I hope that what is happening in the world around us, in Turkey, in Russia, and even in America, will bring the Europeans as a whole to their senses. We know that nation-states are no longer able to cope with their own problems. We need a Europe of solidarity.
Perhaps the death of Helmut Kohl and the fact that he will be honored with a European Act of State will bring things together again. Finally, as we come to the end of our interview, we'd like you to complete 3 sentences for us. I, Rudolf Seiters, find honoring Helmut Kohl with a European Act of State.
Yes, it is remarkable that something like that has not happened before, but this also shows the prominent place Helmut Kohl has in the memory of today's generation in Europe and around the world. This is really Europe bowing down before a great European.
Today's politicians can learn from Helmut Kohl
how important it is to have an inner compass, to be grounded, to always put yourself in the position of others, even in negotiations, according to the motto, how much can I demand from my opposite number if the compromise is to last? And as I've said, giving and sticking to your word.
And we've already touched on the subject of politics. Without a personal relationship of trust with the political actors,
it's difficult, problematic, and above all not suited to resolving conflicts if trust is absent.
Rudolf Seiters, thank you for talking to us.